Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is out in theaters. It came out last weekend, directed by Christopher McQuarrie, starring Mr. Tom Cruise himself. This is the 8th entry in the Mission Impossible franchise. It's the last entry? Question mark? I don't know. As long as Tom Cruise is alive, I think they're going to be making Mission Impossible movies. That's just me. But he might be doing other stuff now, which fascinates me. What do I think of this movie? I think it's pretty good. Would I call it great? No, I don't think I can call it great, unfortunately. This is a 2 hour and 55 minute slog at times. The first hour of this movie, first 55 minutes, is like some of the worst the Mission Impossible franchise has to offer. It falls into a lot of pitfalls that these franchises that have been going on for so long can fall into, where for some reason they just feel the need to connect so much of the old movies to the new movies. So like right away we get flashbacks to Mission Impossible 1 and 2 and 3 and Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation and all this, and some of it doesn't, a lot of it actually doesn't really connect with the plot. A lot of it is just like, hey, you know, the movie starts with Tom Cruise putting a VCR tape into a TV and receiving a message from the president because, you know, from the president because the entity is out there. So, you know, he do an analog, you know, if you choose to accept this mission thing. So, and the video, while the video is playing, we are intercut with just old Mission Impossible clips, and like that stuff just doesn't really hit for me. I don't really know who it hits for. I don't think anyone like loves that type of stuff because it just like, why are you showing me like the parts things that I love with like very little context other than like, hey, remember when he climbed the Burj Khalifa and held on to an airplane? Like, yeah, that stuff was awesome. If I wanted to watch that, I would just watch that movie. So right away, slow start. There's so many flashbacks. And then the things that they attempt to tie to the old movies, there's two like grave sins in particular that I'm like, what does this add? It adds nothing. They try to pull in the rabbit's foot from MI3, which I wonder how late that they added that, because recently, I don't know, the past like 6-8 months, I guess, it feels like people are on a mission to reclaim Mission Impossible 3, which, you don't remember, stars Philip Seymour Hoffman as the villain, and while he is wonderful in that movie, it's definitely the best villain performance in the franchise, I would guess. That movie was not liked at the time, and I rewatched it not that long ago for when Dead Reckoning came out. That movie's not good. Like, we just have to like admit that. We can't reclaim every like movie that we may or may not be nostalgic for, guys, and I think we need to reckon with that, not pun intended. Like, if we want to go back and be like, wow, Philip Seymour Hoffman is probably the best Mission Impossible villain, that's one thing. But to say that this movie is like good, it was directed by J.J. Abrams, and it looks really crappy. I think some of the acting is quite poor in it. I think Cruise is doing his thing, but that movie's not very good, and the reason that I just went on that tangent is because they bring in the rabbit's foot. They kind of bring in the rabbit's foot, which is the MacGuffin from Mission Impossible 3. It's, at the time in the movie, it's believed to basically be like a nuclear bomb, more or less, if memory serves me. And this time, they actually say, oh, well, it was actually like the original entity code, I think, kind of, but it was in bomb form, or we made it look like a bomb. It just doesn't track. Not only does it not track, you do nothing with it. There's nothing done with it. It's just like, hey, yeah, this actually matters. Like, okay, sure. And then there's like this overarching, like, well, because of the good guy actions that Tom Cruise took in Mission Impossible 3, we've been led to this point where now he can save the world, even though he feels like, oh, maybe I'm not up for it. Like, that is kind of the only through line that we get out of it. The other part of this movie is Shea Wiggum, who I think is a wonderful actor, good character actor, is John Voight's son, I guess. And if you remember, John Voight is the turncoat in Mission Impossible 1, the first one. And Shea Wiggum is his son, and literally nothing is done with that outside of a reveal in the first act. That's it. That's it. There's no follow-up on it. There's, they get a final scene together towards the end of the movie where they just kind of solemnly nod and shake each other's hands, and then they go on their way. And I don't know what that was for. It just adds absolutely nothing. And then there was the one connection where I'm like, okay, I'm happy with this. Happy enough, I should say, is I can't remember the actor's name off the top of my head, but the agent from Mission Impossible 1, when Cruise is doing his zip line down into the lab, and he's on his computer, and he goes back up and drops the knife, goes back under the ceiling, drops the knife as he's escaping. The employee walks in, sees the knife, and is like, huh, what happened around here? And then I guess there's no follow-up. That actor comes back, and the way that they set that up, I won't spoil too much, too heavily, I feel like, but you've probably seen this movie by now. The way they bring that actor back, I quite enjoyed, because it's not something that, like, stuck with me. You know what I mean? Like, Jon Voight's turn or Philip Seymour Hoffman's performance, like, those are things that, like, we actively think about when we talk about those Mission Impossible movies. We never really talked about the, like, what happened to this average guy in the first Mission Impossible. And now we kind of learn. And it also furthers the plot of this movie, of Final Reckoning, excuse me. So I'm okay with that one. It's pretty harmless. The other one's harmful. So that is kind of the first third of the movie. The agent from Mission Impossible 1 stuff, that kind of comes later. But first third is a slog. Just not great, not gonna lie. Middle third really picks up. Outside of the entity being the main villain and Gabriel being his servant in the first one, and then kind of not being his servant in this movie, he's more of like, oh, well, I failed the entity, so the entity thinks that I'm weak, but in reality, I will actually steal the entity's code and then control the entity, so then, I'm in charge of it. Okay. There's a main set piece in the second act, which is the submarine stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's very cool. And it's long stretches of no dialogue. It's Tom Cruise alone learning how to put on a wetsuit and dive down. He gets onto this submarine through a series of incredible events, which honestly I was like, you know what, this isn't the Mission Impossible stuff right here. This is good. I like this, that everyone is just like, well, this guy's my last hope, so why the heck not? And it works really, really well. Hannah Waddingham, she of Ted Lasso and Game of Thrones fame, why just cast an American lady? Like, her accent is just distracting. Tremel Tillman of Severance fame, what a blast he is. Katie O'Brien, I freaking love her. She's wonderful. She of The Mandalorian and Love Lies Bleeding and Twister. Yeah, she was in Twisters too. She's wonderful. Tremel Tillman, great. Some really great acting going on in the submarine stuff. And then Cruise jumps out of the submarine, or excuse me, jumps out of the helicopter to get onto that submarine, and that is amazing stuff. Just like, it's so obvious the stunts are just incredibly real, and Cruise is the one doing them. And then he goes on his big departure of the sub to go find the entity's original source code, which is in the submarine, the Russian submarine that got sunk at the beginning of Dead Reckoning, Part 1. Not a Part 1 anymore. And there's this long, drawn-out sequence of just him in the dark, basically, of him going through the submarine, and it's all very cool, very sketchy, very kind of spooky. I don't love an underwater submarine that's, been blown to pieces, basically, and water's filling up and stuff. Like, that stuff is very cool and quite tense. Does it work for me movie-wise? I don't know, because it's really slow. And, like, that is the point, clearly. It's supposed to drag on. It builds the tension, and I get it. And it's successful in that. But I think personal preference, I don't know if I love it as much as probably other people might. It's the same thing with me with Thunderball, the Sean Connery Bond movie, where he's underwater for a significant amount of time, and it's very impressive stunt work, and you can tell that a lot of this is real. And I'm just like, can we pick up the pace a little bit or something? It's slow to watch someone swim underwater for a long period of time. Luckily, they do supplement like the events that happen in the sub. There's always like something, some barrier to get over, some door to open that brings tension, and the sub is falling deeper into the ocean at the same time. So like there is some manufactured tension, manufactured as it be. It does work, I think. It's just not my favorite Mission Impossible stunt. But then we get the third act, and my God, I know all of the nonsense that people are complaining about for the third act in terms of just like characters making weird bad decisions, like what, just not really behaving like humans. The biplane stunts, the final set piece, is just on another level of comedy. And by comedy, I mean like, what the F? How is this real? Is he actually doing this? And the answer is so clearly yes. We've all seen the trailer. You've all seen the trailer of him hanging on to the biplane, the yellow biplane. It's the set piece of the movie. And it is so much more than what they show you in the trailer. Thank God for that. My mouth was on the floor the whole time. I'm just like, I can't understand how this man is alive. How are they doing this? Why is he doing this himself? It's so clearly Tom Cruise doing this. You've never seen anything like it. And that's why this movie like hits, because this third act is such a payoff for some of the worst Mission Impossible stuff that I've seen out of these 8 movies. It hits because it's some of the best stuff I've seen out of these 8 Mission Impossible movies. I absolutely loved that part. And then, you know, when you end on such a high note, I'm going to be more forgiving of the rest of the movie. And maybe that's just a personal bias of me. But, you know, then I look back on the almost 3 hours that I spent, and I was like, I mean, yeah, some of the stuff is weird and boring. And I'm just like, can we pick up the pace a little bit here? Why is this movie 3 hours long? But also the last hour, I was having a blast. You know, the weird situations that these people are putting themselves in, be damned, with all the bomb disarmaments and the sacrifices that they do or don't make. Like, they're weird decisions overall, but I mean, you got Tom Cruise just hanging off of biplane, jumping from biplane to biplane, hanging out off the sky, like just injected into my veins. Yeah, it's a good movie. I mean, just there's not really. I've thought about this. There's really only 2 bad Mission Impossible movies, and I think it's 2 and 3. And Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning goes right after them into my 6th slot of Mission Impossible rankings. If you're curious, my rankings are Fallout's number 1 with a bullet, Ghost Protocol, Dead Reckoning, the original Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, Final Reckoning, MI3, and MI2. Yeah, so definitely go see this movie. I mean, I know that I really think some people are not going to enjoy this movie if you haven't seen it yet, because it's long and there's a lot of talking and it's very contrived. And that being said, I think you'll remember the highs a lot more than you'll remember the lows, because that's how I walk away with this, because those lows really, really hung there for a long time, it felt like. But as soon as we got to the back half of the second act and the third act, you kind of just, my eyes kind of just glaze over, and I say, Mr. Cruise, take the wheel. What's next for Tom Cruise? Apparently an Inarritu movie, Alejandro Inarritu, he of the Revenant fame. I have yet to like a movie that guy's directed, so I'm not going to hold my breath on that one, but we'll see. I think that guy's a pretty poor director. Hopefully Cruise makes interesting projects going forward. Yeah, that is all for my review of Mission Impossible. Go see it in theaters. The box office is bumping this week, so there's definitely something out there for you. But other than that, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye!